The Volturi from Twilight. A group of villains that were so terrifying, I could not believe that they came out of the same franchise that made the characters Edward and Bella. They also had super deep lore too. You could tell that Stephanie Meyers put a lot of effort into them. Yet they were so underutilized. Hello everyone, I am Renee Rule with Reulerverse, and today we're going to talk about what the heck happened to the Volturi? I mean, they had so much potential, yet just like with the Cullen family, it was squandered in favor of two self-insert characters. And in my opinion, it should not have happened that way. In this video, we're going to talk about the Volturi's background, their role in the main plot, and how they could have been utilized better. Let's get into it. The Volturi's background. The Volturi are a group of vampires who secretly govern the world of Twilight. They're basically the equivalent of vampire royalty. In the books, Edward describes them not as evil, but basically the foundations of rules for the vampire world that keeps them together and keeps them a secret from humans. They even have a list of rules that every vampire must follow, or they will be executed by the Volturi for being a threat to their way of life. These rules are: hunts must be inconspicuous, immortal children are not allowed, dealing with the children of the moon, aka werewolves, except for the purpose of extermination, is prohibited. Hunting is prohibited at Volturi headquarters. Attention should not be drawn, and vampires should not go in open sunlight. The creator is responsible for a newborn vampire's behavior. And finally, vampires should not reveal their nature to a human without turning or taking them out. The Volturi have ruled for 25 centuries, get that in your head, centuries, and have a ton of lore, influence, and history all across Europe and Africa. Honestly, I applaud Stephanie Meyers for the effort for this world building. It's actually a lot more than you would expect. And if y'all want a lore video on the Volturi, I could actually do multiple of those. And I forgot until making this video, but Carlisle apparently also spent time with the Volturi trying to teach them humanity, his ethical ways, but to no avail. They obviously did not care. That right there could have easily been set up for a rivalry between the Cullens and the Volturi later on. But as you all know, that didn't really happen in the main series. Because, as you all know, the Volturi's role in the story was limited at best. The Volturi's role in the plot. We first see the Volturi in the second book / movie of the franchise. In it, Bella and Edward have broken up, and Edward, in all of his melodrama, decides that he is going to unalive himself in the worst way possible by going to Rome, where vampires are not allowed to hunt, much less walk in the sunlight, and of course he plans to go and walk into the sunlight. Honestly, this is a really dumb way to get the Volturi into the plot, but hey, I'm just glad they're there. I'll take whatever I can get with Twilight. But once they got there, man, was the whole scene just fire. I remember the scene where Bella and Alice were waiting in the waiting room to, have an appointment with these ancient vampires. And there was a woman at the front desk who was a receptionist, and Bella noticed she was human. And Edward would later say, oh yeah, it seems like she's hoping that they'll keep her. Like she's some kind of pet or something. Ugh, so creepy. And also, let's not forget that tourist scene where the tourists were just walking down the hall, minding their own business, and then Bella hears a bunch of screaming and they all just disappear. Straight up horror scene. Again, in a vampire romance book. It was awesome. After seeing this, I was so excited to see what the Volturi could do next, what their role in the plot was. It was clear that they were the main villains because they very obviously contrasted with the Cullens. Their goals directly conflicted with each other. The Cullens being vegetarian vampires and the Volturi being, these mass serial unalivers who take out humans without a second thought. Not to mention, now they know about Bella, and they're telling the Cullens, hey, you either make her one of you, or you get rid of her, or we're gonna get rid of all of you. Come on, you can't say that wasn't perfect setup for a conflict. But unfortunately, after this scene, the Volturi hardly show up or are even mentioned. Sometimes Edward talks about their rules from time to time, but that's about it. However, in the last book, the final battle is with the Volturi. I gotta give credit for that. The Volturi spotted Renesmee and they thought that she was a child vampire, so they thought the Cullens were breaking the rules. And they were like, okay, yeah, now we gotta go exterminate the Cullens. I also really like how Carlisle had a bunch of friends and he gathered up a ton of vampires to help, even though the whole time I was thinking, what are these vampires eating? Forks is a really small town. Are they feasting on the locals? Because people would notice that. But despite all that, the build up to the battle was cool, but then the payoff, ooh. I mean, as you all know, the battle never actually happened. And it would have been so cool if it did, because I think the Cullens with their friends and the werewolves and Bella's abilities actually could have taken them down. And then when they did, we could have had this theme about how they've taken down a tyrannical regime and now they gotta rebuild and make the world better. But instead there was the problematic message that it's okay to leave the Volturi alone. The current system for vampires is fine. Man, that whole thing left me very disappointed, and I know it did for a lot of fans too. But enough of that, I have been complaining enough about the Volturi. You guys get it, they were awesome, but they were hardly used and I didn't like that. So if I could make some changes, how would I write the Volturi differently? How the Volturi could have been done better. If I were writing the Twilight franchise, I would make the Volturi apparent as main villains from the very beginning. I'd make it so Edward isn't stressed about meeting Bella simply because he doesn't want to hurt her. It's because the Volturi have eyes everywhere, and humans are not supposed to know about vampires. However, Bella is too curious, and she finds out anyway. Then I'd make James and Victoria involved directly with the Volturi. If you don't remember, those are the main villains of the first and second and part of the third book. I'd make them foot soldiers of sorts. They show up not just out of the blue, but to ask when the Cullens will turn Bella. And when they don't get a straight answer, James takes matters into his own hands, partially because he wants to enforce the rules of the Volturi, but mostly because he enjoys the hunt and Bella is a challenge. When Edward then goes to Rome in the second book, and I'd give him a better reason for going to Rome, I don't know quite what it is yet, but it wouldn't just be to off himself. This would then make the confrontation with the Volturi be more built up to. Bella is terrified and is genuinely risking her life by going, and just like in the original, they spare her because of her latent abilities. They warn her, though, that they will not control their foot soldiers, so the longer she waits to turn, the more her life will be in danger. The plot with Victoria would happen in a similar manner, except she has Volturi soldiers alongside the newbie vampires she recruits to take out Bella. She also justifies her actions by stating that Bella and the Cullens broke the rules. This puts pressure on the Cullens and Bella. As a result, Bella's need to turn gets stronger. Her want to become a vampire would be more justified because it's combined with her fear for her life. So instead of her wanting it because of vanity, because she wants to be young forever and she wants to be with Edward forever, she wants it more because she's terrified. And then Edward would resist turning her because he knows that that's the reason she wants to turn, and that's not a good reason to give up your life. The final battle would then have more context. When the Volturi see Renesmee, that is the sort of last straw for them. They've had enough of the Cullens and they are ready to take them out. They amass their armies, and the Cullens respond in kind. The final battle is inevitable, and many die on both sides. However, because of Bella's ability, the Cullens win. Then, with a power vacuum in place, the Cullens become the new Volturi, amassing a brand new world order that will ultimately make it a better place. Yes, in my rewrite, the Cullens become the new Volturi. I feel like that would be a really fitting ending for them, and Carlisle has enough friends and allies to make it work, and it would be cool to see what new world they create. Conclusion. Notice that I didn't really change the story that much, I just made a couple of simple adjustments that fixed the entire build-up of the series. Making James's group involved with the Volturi had very positive ripple effects on the entire plot. And that's because Twilight had the bones for a good story. Again, I do believe that Stephenie Meyers is actually a good writer. but the books were rushed when they came out, so it didn't really reach its full potential. The Cullens should have been natural rivals to the Volturi, and when I eventually do a full Twilight rewrite on this channel, I am going to make that a thing in full force. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this far into the video. It really helps me out. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and all those stuff, and let me know what aspect of Twilight you'd like me to talk about next. With that, I hope I've inspired you, and I'll see you in the next video. If you want to know more about the art I made in this video, it's actually from the free audiobook on my channel called Rise of the Faunus. Check it out if you get the chance. The link will be in the description.